Now that we kind of understand the basics of array list, our goal is to do some more interesting things with them. And the first thing that we're going to try and do is traverse them. So just like when we had arrays and we tried to go through each element to determine something, we're going to do the same thing now. So we're just going to start off with a basic example. Our example that we're going to be working through has to do with a set of grades. So I'm going to create a new array list. We're just going to have grades that are integers, I guess. We're going to remind ourselves here real quickly the fact that whenever I make a new array list, it can't be of ints, it can't be of primitive types. I have to make them of objects, and so I have to use the integer wrapper class. So I'm gonna have my grades here. We'll just set this equal to a new, and this is my array list. It's storing integers, and we'll remind ourselves that I have to use parentheses here because this is an object. Array lists are a class, and so this is a constructor. And so I'm creating a new array list that will be stored in my grades variable. So let's just go ahead and add some then. So we'll have grades.add. And let's say that we add, first grade is 100. And my second grade is an 80. And then my third grade is, I don't know, how about just a 60? And then my fourth grade is a 50. And then I'm going to add two more. Add 90. And then I'm going to have another 60. Okay. So we're going to do a couple different things with these. The first thing that we might want to do is obviously we just want to determine an average. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to traverse through my list and look at each individual item and then determine the sum and then obviously the average off that. So I'm going to probably need a sum to work with here. So int sum, I'm going to start off at 0. Great, and then it's just a matter of writing a for loop. So we've done for loops for arrays before, and this is going to look exactly the same. I'm still going to have an index that I'm working with. It's going to start at 0, and I'm going to go until, so now we're just going to make some small changes. Instead of the length of the array, I'm going to have grades.size, which tells me the length of my array list, and I'm still going to increment I by 1 each time, and then I'm going to add them all up. And so I'm going to take sum and I'm going to add to it. Well, what am I actually getting? Well, so now again, I can't access arrays in the same way, or I can't access my array list in the same way I did with my arrays. Instead, I have to use the get command. And so this will be grades dot get and then the index I'm currently at. Once I've done that, I can actually calculate what my average is. I should probably create a double and call it average. Let's say I'm going to take sum, which I'm actually going to cast to a double first. Sum, and then divide it by, well, the length of my array. I guess I don't know what I'm doing. I should just left that. The length of my array list would just be grades.size. Perfect. All right. So again, I just ran through this real quickly because this is something we already kind of know how to do. Let's go ahead and make sure of it. Dot print line and my average grade is, and then we'll go ahead and throw in my average. All right, let's go ahead and run this and make sure that I know what I'm talking about. We will go ahead and compile this. This is my ArrayList traversals. Yep. Oh, no. What did I do? The same thing I always forget to do, which is import my ArrayList class. So I'm going to go ahead and import, and then java.util.array. I really thought I was going to get away with no errors. Oh, well. Oh, that's not one. All right. And then I'll run array list traversals. Bam. Okay, great. 73.3. Awesome. Okay, so again, this is nothing new. We've already run through traversals of arrays before, and of array lists before, which are exactly the same as arrays. So let's go ahead and do something maybe it's a little bit different. Let's instead say that, hey, I've got all my grades here. At the end of the semester or whatever, they're going to get rid of all my grades that are less than a 70. So let's go ahead and give that a try. So how would I write this instead? The reason this is a new thing for us is that when I had my arrays, it was really hard for me to remove things. Like, yeah, I could take an item out, but then I just had this like blank spot there. But array list, it makes it really easy. I can remove things. So what I would encourage you to do is to pause here for a second, change your for loop around, and just remove all the grades that are less than 70. All right, so I'm going to do that now. I'm going to get rid of all the things I don't need. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of these. Okay, so how can I do this? Well, I'm going to do it the wrong way first. I'm going to do it the naive way. I shouldn't say naive way, but just the way without fully thinking through all this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at each item. And so I'm going to say if grades dot get, and then the thing at I is less than 70, then I want to remove it. All right, so this is the maybe obvious way to start off with. And so what I'm gonna just do is then just take, okay, so I'll just take grades dot remove, and then what am I return the thing at I. Let's go ahead and just really quick write a for loop down here to print things out. Is less than grades dot size. I feel like this is a for loop that I've written I don't know how many times before at this point. I'm going to have system dot out dot print line, and this is going to be item at index space, and then I, and then colon, and then grades at get I. Okay. So this seems like it does whatever I want it to, right? So I'm gonna look at each item, starting at item 0, going to the end of the list. If that thing is less than 70, then I remove it. No big deal. That should be easy. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this and run it. We'll see if I run into any issues. Wow. Okay. Okay. Let's see. It looks like it ran okay, but I have one item in here that's still less than 70. And so why is that? Well, we think about this for a second. Let's go ahead and write a comment here. Throw a comment in. So what I've got right now is I've got 100, I've got 80, I've got 60, I've got 50, I've got 90, and I've got 60 again. Okay, so what is my list doing here? Well, it's looking at item 100 first. So this is index 0. And saying, is that less than 70? The answer is no. So I don't do this. I move on. Everything's good. So then I move to index 1. So now I'm looking at 80. And I ask myself, is that less than 70? The answer is no. So I increment I, no big deal. Now I'm looking at index 2. All right, so that's worth noting. I'm looking at index 2 currently. I look at it, and I say, hey, that item is in fact less than 70. Let's remove it. So I do that. And so that item gets removed from my list. I'm still currently looking at index 2. And so when I increment my I value, I'm now looking at index 3. But 60 just got removed. It's gone. And so if I look at index 3, what's at index 3? Well, 90 is. I end up skipping this item because once everything got bumped up by 1, I no longer, and I continue to increment my I value, I no longer look at that value because I'm just skipping over it. So there's a couple different ways of doing this. Way number 1, if I don't want to change this list at all, is I can just say, well, all right, if I enter into this, that means that, well, I'm going to remove an item, and so that means I'm going to end up skipping over something. So why don't I just I minus, and that is definitely a solution to this problem. So if I go ahead and save this and I go ahead and run, what will happen here is every time I get, so the issue runs into whenever I have these double values. Whenever I have a double value, I will end up incrementing I when I come back around, but I will have already gone backwards by 1. So they kind of cancel each other out. I hate using that phrase, but you know what I mean. And so I don't end up skipping items. There's another slightly more clever way of doing this, and that is, well, how about this? If I start at the end of my list and remove items from there, so if I start looking at 60 and then 90 and then 50 and then 60, when I'm removing things off, everything's shifting down to the left one, which doesn't actually mess with my counting. And so instead what I can do is I can look at grades.size -1 and go while grade I is greater than or equal to 0, and then I minus. This will give me the same effect, and I don't have to worry about adding anything in, because whenever I'm removing things off, I don't have to worry about it. And so if the order in which I'm looking at things doesn't matter, which generally speaking it doesn't if I'm removing things like this, then I can go from the end of the list to the beginning, or vice versa, and have that additional I minus in there, where it floats your boat. Okay, so that's traversing arrays with for loops. The additional thing that we should probably talk about is the enhanced for loop. If we're going to talk about traversing array lists, I think I just said arrays earlier. I meant array list. If we're going to be traversing array lists with for loops, we might as well talk about with enhanced for loops. And there's some interesting things that are going to come up. So let's go ahead and rewrite the things that we just did, but with enhanced for loops. So in fact, I would encourage you to pause this video here, go back and just try to find your average again using the enhanced for loop. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and try that. So my enhanced for loop, what I'm going to have is for, and then I am looking at integer values here. Okay, so I have to be careful about what I'm talking about. I'm looking at integer values. I'm looking at each grade within grades. And what I'm going to do is look at each item and add it up. So I'm going to need my sum variable back. It's going to start at 0. And then what this does is that a copy is being made of each of my grades and stored in grades. So this is not the actual value itself. The copy is being stored, and I can do something with that. Which with numbers, it doesn't really matter because I'm just looking at them and adding them up. And so I can say sum plus equals what grade is. And I can do the same thing last time that I did, which is that let's see, I had it was a double, it was average, and equals to double, and then the sum divided by, and then what do I have? Grades dot size. Bam. And I'll print that out. What am I printing out? Just average. Correct. All right. So again, what's happening here is I'm just looking at each item. I'm making a quick copy of it, and then storing them in my sum, adding them all up, printing out my average, which is fantastic. But I don't have to use an index here. Don't have to worry about incrementing. Don't have to worry about going up to the end of the length. It just takes care of it all for me, which is nice. And I'll go ahead and run this. I got the same average, which is fantastic. All right, so let's go back and try and solve the problem that we just did, which was for removing those items from my list. So I'm going to encourage you to do the thing that we did before, which was remove all the values less than 70, but try to use an enhanced for loop this time. So go ahead and give that a shot. Okay, so I hope you didn't spend too much time on it, because chances are, I hope you didn't get stuck, but if you did, there's a very good reason for it. It's fine. It's okay. There are several issues that we're going to run into when we attempt to do this. So let's go ahead and tackle each one of those. So if I just write my for loop, my enhanced for loop like I did last time, I'm going to have for my integer grade within grades. Okay, so I need to look at each item and then remove it. The issue is that if I want to look at each item, well, I can look at an item, it's grade, it's a temporary value for grade. But if I want to remove that item from the list, well, how do I do that? I don't know which item I'm looking at. I have no way of trying to figure that out. So you might have to think, well, okay, maybe I'll be clever here, and I will just make a slide little index here to start off at 0, and I'll just keep track of that as I go. So what I can do is, well, if grade is less than 70, well, okay, so I didn't know what item I was referring to, but this index is going to help me out. I can do the same thing that I did before. So I'm going to take, let's see, so if grade is less than 70, I want to remove that item. So I'm going to remove grades.remove, and then the thing at index 0 or index I. And then what I did last time was I minus minus, I minus minus, and then at the end I'll just add everything. So basically what I've done is I've taken my enhanced for loop and made it not really an enhanced for loop anymore. I just have my indices in there, which at that point, why wouldn't I just have used the for loop? But that's fine. I'm going to try and run this, and what we're actually going to see is that something doesn't work out the way we intended it to. So if I compile this, it tells me that I did something wrong here. Variable is already defined. Oh, yeah, okay, good call. Yeah, fine. That's a good call. It really threw me off for a second because I forgot that we had that other for loop down below. But since my j is a global variable essentially, and it's not local to my for loop anymore, it's going to throw everything off. That's fine. It just wasn't the error that I was expecting to get. So I was thrown. That's okay. We can try this again. And actually, I shouldn't get an exception thrown here. I should get an error when I run. Oh golly, what happened? Okay, so it says that exception in thread main, java.util, concurrent modification exception. Concurrent modification exception. What could that possibly mean? So it looks like it has something to do with the fact that in my ArrayList traversals, in my ArrayList iteration, maybe itr.next, like what is going on here? Here's what's going on. So enhanced for loops, what they're doing is they're making a copy of my values of my array list as I go. And they're copying those over, and then we get to do something with them. The thing is, though, they're using these iterators to actually go through each item in the array list. And so what that means is that what we can't do right now is mess with the array list, right? Whenever I'm using an enhanced for loop, I can't make changes to the array list itself. And so by me just having this remove statement in here, I just can't. That's not something I can do. I can't have removes or modifications to my grades while I am going through and looking at each item. It just doesn't work. So the question is, how can I do this so that this does work out? The answer is, we'll just go back and use the regular for loop. But if we have to make this work, we can make it work. Here's how I would do it. If I really, really want to, what I'm going to do is actually just make a new array list of integers, and we will call this I don't know, grades2, clever name, equals new, and then array list of integers. Oh, wrong thing. Okay, and what I'm going to do instead of removing items from my array list, which I can't do, I'm just going to add them to this different array list. So what I would do instead is that if grade is less than 70, I'm not going to remove it from this list. What I'm just going to do is take grades2 and add it, .add, and then my grade. So that's the best I got. This really isn't a good answer to this problem here. I probably should have just done it with the for loop to begin with, but what I wanted to show you was the fact that we can't modify these array lists whenever I am inside of my enhanced for loop. And I have actually finished this. Yes, it's all going to be in grades too, but if I want this to be stored back in grades, then I just have to go down here and make sure I actually reassign it. Now, this should all have worked out fine and dandy, I hope. Fine. Oh, I did the wrong thing. Greater than. Okay, that's better. Greater than or equal to, I guess, is what I should have had, but I don't have any 70 values in there, so I guess it doesn't matter. There we go. Okay, so again, not the best solution. This is just another one of those reasons where enhanced for loops, I guess, have their purpose. Their purpose is whenever I just want to look at items in my array list. I just pretty much always use for loops, though, because I don't know, I just think they're better. It's bias, I guess, but... So anyway, that's traversing array lists. It looks exactly like arrays do with some additional features. The fact that I can actually add or remove items to my array list as I am going through it is something new. It's not something to do with my array, but the idea in general stays the same. So that's traversals of array lists, which will come in handy very much going forward whenever we start going into searching and then sorting.